What's up, everybody? It's your boy D-Bird back again to talk about my favorite reality show, Survivor. How we doing, DJB?
It's good, and I would like to clarify, it is our favorite reality show, Survivor.
This is true. This is a shared interest that we have. It is pretty much the only thing we have in common.
Other than great mustaches, I see your connection.
There's a little space here that I'm still working on, but
Another 20, 30 years, that's going to feel real nice.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah. Maybe I can get it tattooed on or something. I don't know.
Some Bosley transplants.
Yeah, just take some from the back of the neck and just put it right here. Yeah. Sure, it'll work perfect. Well, we're back. We love the show Survivor, so we have dedicated this season to analyzing all the strategy, all the players, from the weird plastic faces that they make to the dumb boneheaded moves they make. We'll analyze it all.
I call the dumb boneheaded moves Andyisms.
He does. He's coined the term Andyisms, and this is just what we'll move forward with. All right. Well, this is episode 9, so they're getting deep into it. And the last we saw, got. Great line.
Great line.
Basically, Rachel played her shot in the dark just to gauge the reactions, realized she didn't have to play the idol. That was just so brilliant. So she's chilling. Sam thanked everybody for keeping him because they got out his biggest partner in crime, Sierra. Unfortunate to see her go.
Yeah.
But love to watch her leave.
Maybe. I mean, they were rumored. But she seemed a little bit salty, and Sam seemed a little bit bewildered by the move. And I think this episode really takes off with kind of like the recap back at camp. Like, Sam's got to scramble a little bit, figure out what's going on.
And it kind of goes back to, like, every time somebody feels a little confident, starting to feel a little cocky, like, I've got this in the bag, that's when you don't have it in the bag on Survivor.
Mm-hmm. To Sam's credit, I think he impressed everybody, including Saul, with his reaction, because I think it was just kind of like common assumption from people that he was going to freak out, he was going to scramble, he was going to throw people under the bus or try to like overplay, and he didn't do that. He was just kind of cool and sat back.
I mean, honestly, he played it perfectly. Like, that's exactly what you got to do. You got to be like, oh, yeah, I understand. You know, you had to break us up. You thought we were going to work together. But honestly, you could have told me. I totally would have voted with you. You know, like, he was just so chill. And everyone's like, oh, he's not even that mad. Meanwhile, he's giving confessionals like, I can't wait to slit all their throats. I'm furious.
Yeah. No, I think this is the correct type of sociopath for the game, right?
Yes.
Not AI Andy, but like saying all the right things, but still having that like deep-seated fire to do better and get revenge. Like, that's the type of player that I want to be if I'm on Survivor. That's the type of player I want to root for.
Yeah, 100%. Sam has been my boy since, you know, basically day 1, day 2. I'm like, oh, this guy's really smart and likable, which is dangerous in this game. But Andy is like talking in the confessional how he's proud. He's a certified flipper. And he turns to Sam and was like, you know, the target was on your back, man, but I spent all the social capital that I've been earning to keep you in the game. He tried to make it look like he saved his life, and I thought that was really, like, embarrassing.
Yeah, et tu, Brute. Like, he stabbed his number 1 in the back by getting rid of his partner without saying anything to him, and then comes back like, aren't you glad I saved you instead of Sierra?
Would have been you, but...
Yeah. It's like, if you know that and you're really cool with me, you would tell me what was going on. You wouldn't just blindside me and then try to, like, come back and put a cape on and be like, totally saved you, man. You have no idea what was going against you.
That goes nowhere with me. Yeah. And Andy also approaches Rachel to apologize. Rachel, my girlfriend, she was watching and she's like, wow, she's pretty freckly. I was like, yeah, good observation.
Is she going to come on and provide more of this analysis? And I don't think she's coming on, just as I don't think D-Bird's coming back. So basically, Rachel and Andy are talking on the beach, and Andy's talking about like, "Hey, I know I've screwed you over 2 times in a row now, but I think we have this really strong connection.
Yes.
We're both Asian. That's cool." It's like,
yeah.
seriously, that's your in? It's like, hey, we both came from the same continent at one time.
And turns out a lot of people come from that continent.
Yeah, like the majority of the world comes from that continent.
But yeah, I mean, they showed back when Andy was still, thriving around, just flopping, little baby seal, beached on the beach. And they like kind of had something going before he went crazy. So they had a little bit of like, oh, we should work together. And then just didn't. He like basically blindsided her over and over. And now she's like, oh yeah, maybe.
Well, I like that clip where it showed like he was just kind of lurking. And at one point she's like, stop, Andy, stop. This is not going to work. It's like, okay, so I think I got the message. But now that I've screwed you over twice in a row, seems like the perfect opportunity.
Yeah. So, basically Sam does the I'm cool. No, seriously, I'm not even mad. Who cares? He impresses Teeny and Saul. And Teeny, like Saul buys it instantly. He's like, oh yeah, Sam doesn't care at all. He's great. Teeny apologizes because that's all she's done this entire game is just, I'm so sorry for existing. Oh, I'm a scarecrow. And basically Sam throws out Gabe's name saying like, yo, do you see how he's working with Sue, Caroline? He's too strong right now. And everyone starts thinking like, oh yeah, maybe that guy is a problem.
Yeah. Which I think is the perfect target honestly, because first he's on Tuku, which has the numbers. Mm-hmm. Second, he's right. He is a social guy. He seems to get along well with both the males and the females. He hasn't shown that he's a comp like threat, but he's always been in like that top third. And so it's like, if I wanted to put the target on someone else that also won't have any like collateral damage or blowback toward me, like Gabe's a good choice.
It's a great choice. So they get some tree mail. It tells them to divide into pairs before heading into the challenge. You're going to compete together, but only one can win the belt. And it was kind of funny that Sam immediately goes to Andy. He's like, this guy sucks. I know I can beat him. And meanwhile, Andy's like, oh, we're friends again. Like every duo essentially had one person who's like, I choose you because I know if we go head to head, I'm going to kick your ass. And then it gets flipped to the other side. That other person they're facing is like, oh yeah, we're just such good friends. Like, of course we'd do this together. That was kind of a funny dichotomy.
Yeah, and it was almost too easy how everybody just came together like, yep, this is what we're doing. And there is no argument. There's no bickering. Like Gabe's pumped to be with his country bumpkin.
Yeah.
Andy's excited that a human's talking with him. It seemed to flow.
Yeah, it did. And I like the way Kyle described him and Gabe's pairing. Jeff asked them before the thing, how did this come together? How easy was it? Kyle's like, yeah, we locked eyes and I asked him to be mine. He said yes. It was like very romantic,
Yeah, no, I like that guy. He's if I had to
so much.
Yeah, if I had to repick, actually I'd probably still stay with Caroline, but I think he's the most likable dude. Him and Sam are probably the two most likable people. I'd throw Rachel up there too, but yeah. I don't know, just they seem like good people, like people I could have a beer with at the bar and like tolerate.
And like cool too, right? Like Sam is like the ultimate cool guy. Kyle also very cool, but in like a humble sort of like blue collar dude next door type way. And Rachel, kind of the same. She's probably like some theater kid or whatever, like had her own group of friends, wasn't necessarily a prep, but like super cool personality. Yeah, I like them all.
Yeah. I wouldn't be upset if any of them won.
Same. But what I've found is the more likable you are, the more likely you have to get out. So I'm sure none of the people I like will be left standing, and it's all just a bunch of monsters. That's what.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like looking at like polarizing characters in Survivor versus the people who just are chameleons and they're able to adapt and acclimate to any scenario or situation. And like I'm thinking now historically, I think most often those who are polarizing, oh no, I think the polarizing people leave. Like I think Charlie last year, like he was the most likable dude ever. He made it to the end.
Yeah. And still didn't win. Just that blew my mind. I didn't know how that worked. I was rooting for him.
Me too.
Yeah. That's also a good point too, where it's like sometimes the jury pool is just so diluted, right? Sometimes people are upset. There's real human emotions that go into this, and anyone at Ponderosa, the little, place where the jury sits and waits to go deliberate at the end, any one person can stir the pot and basically turn everyone against one of the finalists.
And I think that's what makes the game so interesting at this juncture, right? Is everybody that you vote out has a chance to stop your ability from winning $1 million.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's not only the tact that you have to operate with, but also having that foresight. Like, is this person going to be one to hold a grudge if I do it this way? And that's why, like, someone like Rome, even if they made it to the end, would never win because he alienated himself with everybody the entire duration of the game so far. But you do have people like those we just mentioned, right? The Kyles, the Sams, the Rachels, who aren't rubbing people the wrong way, and they might not be in the top of the pecking order, but they're doing enough to not piss people off.
And sometimes that's really the best game you can play, is kind of fly under the radar, just be likable, throw a joke in here and there, and don't win too many challenges and just last till the end.
Yeah. Well, Kyle did not get the memo on the last one.
No, he did not. Speaking of which, we go back to our competitors. They've got quite the obstacle course set up for them. They have to go under sand traps. It's like a tunnel, like a chicken coop, to get to these puzzle steps, which they then use to build a staircase, go across some balance beams, and then the next stage, once they win, the winners of that foot race, they'll be balancing against walls with the narrow footholds, and then the last person standing wins individual immunity. You're no longer paired up, it's just you going for it, which basically every one of the challenges this year has been a famous Survivor challenge. It doesn't seem like any of these are new. They're kind of taken from past seasons, and I gotta say I love it.
Yeah. I think this challenge in particular was interesting, just the way you were as a team, and then you ended up facing your teammate when it got down to the final four. So it was cool that it was something that we are used to and familiar with. I think it's another balancing thing, and I want to say almost every immunity or reward has been some form of balance, whether it's balancing an object or rolling a ball or balancing on a tight beam or in the footholds like this week. There's been a lot of that, which sucks for the big dudes because they got big feet.
And a lot of weight bearing down on those feet. Like if you're only having like the edge of your pinky toe that's balancing on it, man, that would hurt so bad.
Yeah, it looks really uncomfortable. Not only does it look treacherous just to find the balance, but like knowing that that's a pressure point, right? Like you're a 200-pound dude, you have 200 pounds on such a small surface area. That's got to be excruciating.
Yeah. Like it's got to be a lot easier for like the 125-pound waifs, you know? So the good news is all that pain will lead to the gain of BLTs, soda, chips. The first 2 pairs that are out will lose their vote at tribal, but they have a chance to win it back on a journey. Basically, the first 2 pairs will get to go on a journey to win back their vote for tribal. So you don't want to go out first or second, right?
Yep.
So they all start kind of going through this chicken coop in the sand. Teeny complains that her ass is too big. Andy and Sam ripped their bag. Like Andy's just yanking. You're getting bags from underneath the sand. You got to dig it up and then yank it out of the sand. Andy just rips the top off of the bag, and both of them turn like, Jeff, and he's like, that's on you, man. Like, and Sam and Andy predictably get out first, along with Rachel and Caroline. Andy just cannot help himself.
No, like I don't get how you're so. How are you terrible at every aspect of the game? Like he's not good with the puzzles. He seems like he should be good physically, and other than cranking the little thing with your forearms, he hasn't. I feel like he's always eliminated early. Yep. He has mental breakdowns. He does not form good relationships. He lies.
He's a flipper. You can't trust him.
Right, exactly. Like, he doesn't seem funny either, which really bothers me.
That's probably the worst part about it. Like, at least say some funny stuff. He's just in the confessionals, just being the cockiest, most delusional person I've ever met.
Like Rome, even though like he was annoying, like he had a bar every now and then.
He had some good lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he rapped for us. Terribly, but that's part of it.
Allegedly.
So then you take the pieces of staircase, the puzzle, to then fit on the square pegs that will go up to the top of the stairs. Each of these pieces, they sort of fit, or they, it fits exactly, but there's some that are close enough. So it's really tough to make sure you have the right pieces. Genevieve is yelling out jumbos over and over. Like I just felt like she had expo experience at a restaurant,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Kind of felt like she was at the window being like, fries are up, just like powering through.
Yeah, absolutely. Omelets all day.
Right. And then you have to go across a balance beam, which, because Genevieve was expoing, they got up so fast and then just took 1,000 years. I'm pretty sure Sue took a dive across the board, but also like 1,000,000 years. Then Genevieve literally was just like the slowest walker ever, and everyone ended up passing her. She was fucking out.
The tortoise and the hare did not work because tortoise just tortoised too much.
Too much tortoise, not enough hare.
Yeah, exactly. My girl Sue, she looked every bit of 39 during that challenge.
Yeah, she did. So the final 4 that are competing are Gabe and Kyle, Teeny and Saul. And, they all get up to their respective balance beams. They have their feet touching these 2 small little pegs. And, basically the last one to drop is safe. I liked how Jeff asked Gabe how he's doing, and Gabe was like, politely, don't talk to me. Just told him to shut the fuck up on his own show.
That actually was pretty funny. But then, like, looking at those like teeny people compared to Saul's a big dude. Right away, I was like, he doesn't stand a chance. There's too much mass to stay on this. I actually like at that moment I was like, I think Teeny might get her first immunity right now.
Yeah. I mean, it was a challenge that was the odds were heavily weighted in their favor for sure. So basically, Teeny and Saul dropped at the same time. Kyle dropped right as Jeff talked about how he could have a perfect season. He was like, "Oh yeah, I could." Oh. And Gabe won his first individual immunity. Asked if he could do a dance for the people back home. Does a little shuffle and a growl and rah, and I fucking hated it.
Oh, it was difficult to watch. Also, Probes, be better. You don't talk about the no-no in the 8th inning. Like, you just don't do it. I mean, it's classic sports jinx.
Yeah, it jinxed him so hard, and fucking Gabe got the dub. I was not happy.
No, I was so mad because I legitimately thought going into that, like, if Gabe doesn't have, if anybody else has immunity, Gabe's gone. Like,
Yeah.
I think Sam had done enough, and the Lavo crew trusted him enough that they realized like getting out a Tuku member would be imperative right now, and Gabe is the perfect candidate for it.
Right. Yep. So the good news is that those 4 that were up on the balance beam, they all get to enjoy a feast of BLTs, chips, sodas. Teeny had a comment. All we're hearing from Gabe is pleasurable moaning and groaning. And it's true. He's just like, oh, just like digging in. Meanwhile, Saul is just burping up a storm. And then they have a burp off in front of Teeny.
Yeah, and Gabe quickly realized he was inferior. And Saul's just like, I come from a family where we burp at the table. And like he was just letting out these monstrous, like it was like when the bear awakens from the cave after hibernation, like and Gabe's like, I was trying to stand up there. It didn't work. You can't just say burp, Gabe. You actually have to burp.
What do you think about that burping at the table, Deej?
I'm not really a fan of it.
Kind of gross, right?
Yeah, I don't think I partake. My wife would probably say something differently.
Mm-hmm. Like, look, if it happens, it happens. But Saul was clearly trying to push some out, and it's like, why? You know, it's not like, oh, I have to burp. Let me just do it really quick, and then I'll continue feasting. It's like, no, look what I can do. Hey, Sue, check this out. Hey, what are you doing? Weird.
Yeah, it was, and I don't know how the editing worked, but they must have edited, 10 different times he burped. Like that's excessive. I understand like you're eating for the first time, you're probably eating really fast, so it's going to provide that reflex. Like, 1 or 2, it's passable. You're on the island.
Yeah. Island life, island rules.
10 burps, a bit excessive.
So Genevieve tells Sue that Saul wants Gabe out. Basically, while they're all burping up a storm and having the time of their life, Genevieve approaches Sue and says, hey, Saul mentioned Gabe's name, so we should probably get Saul. And that's all that takes to trigger Sue. She's like, oh, not my Gaby poo. Oh, whew. She thinks her whole game is shot without Gabe, and it frustrates me to no end. Like, well, yes, you don't want your number 1 to go, but she has no plan other than to just ride Gabe's coattails.
She is the most willing marionette ever, right? She's just like letting Gabe like move her wherever he wants. And he acknowledges it. Like he talks in such a demeaning way about her when she's not around. It's like, it's disgusting, but like she's totally complicit in that. And Genevieve, again, shrewd. Like she has been behind the last like 3 or 4 moves where like she doesn't have to do a ton of work. She plants a seed and then she walks away and she watches the fire burn.
Yeah, totally. She's very smart. very much just like, oh, I just pop that seed over my shoulder, and oh, is that a plant that's growing in there? What?
Yeah.
You guys
No,
see this plant?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like she does it in a way that's almost like seamless. Like, I don't know. It's just like she has this confidence or air about her. It's like, I said it, so it's probably gonna happen now. And then like she doesn't overplay her hand, she doesn't panic. She just has
Yeah.
a conversation. She's very logical and she just has a ton of sway.
Yeah. So that gets Sue going. Sue immediately runs to Gabe the second she can. Genevieve is mad because Saul got out Rome, so she's basically been trying to get him out ever since. And this is the way to do it. Meanwhile, Saul looks at everyone and is like, yo, you guys good with Sam? Gabe says they got the numbers, but, you know, we'll see what ends up happening. Meanwhile, the four that got out first, so Caroline, Rachel, Sam, and Andy, they go out on a journey and they have to compete against each other. 3 will get their vote, 1 person will not, and it's kind of like a reverse Jenga. There's like these metal cards that they're stacking on a base in triangles, and you just have to keep on stacking them until eventually somebody will cause it to fall and that person will lose their vote. Looked kind of fun, to be honest.
Yeah. It looked hard too. I don't know how much weight those things had, but like it definitely seemed, especially like once they got to like the 3rd and 4th tier, like
Yeah.
that seemed like it was going to be difficult to do.
Yeah. I was impressed how high they got it up. And there was so many where I was like, there's no way. And it's kind of like Jenga. If you've ever gone like super long, where you're like, I don't know how this is standing anymore. But that's kind of what happened. And you see people like try to kind of place them poorly to get somebody else out.
Right. To set up the next person.
Yeah.
Because it very much is like the weaker the foundation, the more precarious the stack, right? So, you know, if, especially if you're the last person placing in that tier before it goes to the next one, like if you place it poorly enough, then you do kind of sabotage the next person.
Yeah. Well, eventually, whether by sabotage or by pure accident, Caroline knocked the tower over and lost her vote. It's your girl.
I wasn't too concerned though. Like, I don't think she's on anybody's radar, really. They know that she's tight with Sue and that Sue and Caroline are working with Gabe. But even with Gabe winning immunity and Caroline losing her vote, at no point did I, as you know, the person who's hitched their wagon to Caroline, worry that she was going to be the next target.
Right. Well, because Caroline doesn't have a vote, 5 is a majority. And Genevieve, again, very shrewd. She goes up to Andy, is like, do you want to do something like crazy? I was like, that's just a weird way to do it. But yeah, so she pitches Saul's name. Andy, because he's such a, puppet master, such a game lord, says in the confessional, well, I wanted to use him for a couple more rounds before dumping him. I was like, you're not using anybody in it. You don't know what you're doing. You have no idea why you're there.
The game lord, as they say. Yeah, God, the more Andy talks and the more confident he gets, the more insufferable he becomes. Like,
yes.
This like the episode before where like he morphed from the nerd asking for a seat at the table to the kingpin running the lunchroom. It's like
takes his hair, takes off his glasses.
Like it's getting worse, and I think he believes it. Like I don't think this confidence is a facade. This is who he feels that he is. Like he has metamorphosized during these last 3 episodes.
I feel like, and he's kind of alluded to it, like, oh, I used to be shy and then I grew into myself. I got all this confidence on the outside, and I really want to show the people back home that I'm new, confident Andy, not bitch boy Andy that you might know in high school. And it feels kind of like he stumbled across like a red pill forum or something, like he seems like that incel who's just like, oh yes, treat the woman like shit. Okay.
Yeah. I got to nag him. That's the only way to do it. I watch an MTV show. I nag him.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does feel like that. And it feels also that like, yeah, he kind of showed his unconfident self initially, and then once he's been on the right side of the vote like a couple times, now he's like, oh, I forgot, I'm the Lord of Game, I'm the best that's ever done this. And you're like, no, Mr. Magoo, you've stumbled into this. People used you, and you're claiming credit for it in the confessionals.
Yeah. And really, like, Genevieve's playing it so cool. She's like, I know if I put this off as a big move, and he's going to be more willing to do it, and he's going to do all my bidding for me, and I could sit back because he thinks that he has this unwavering like ability to just sail through anything, which he does. I don't know how he does. Again, it's the Mr. Magooism, but like
because he's not a threat.
He's unscathed with every incident, no matter how goofy, how crazy, or like, oh gosh, it just bothers me.
It's
Like,
so
even the start of
frustrating.
this episode with the Sam conversation. If I were Sam, like, Sam's a lot more restrained than I am. I would just bury Andy.
Yeah. No, that's an insane amount of restraint he showed to like smile on their faces like, no, I totally get it. Yeah, we're cool. Uh-huh. So Genevieve, while she's pitching Saul, she also runs up to tell Rachel. And if you remember from last week, Saul was the only reason that Rachel was still around. He gave her that advantage he found in the picnic basket and basically allowed her to go fuck off back to camp while Tuku ate their own.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's stuck between, okay, do I go with Genevieve's plan? It sounds like they have the numbers, or do I remain loyal to Saul, who saved my life last week? It's a tough position.
It is a tough position, but I think Rachel is a pretty logical person. And I think she did exactly what she had to do. Is like, you have to compartmentalize the head versus the heart. And like, I think logically she knew if I don't go where the votes are, then I'm on the outs for future votes. So even though I'm safe, I can't be like too brazen with what my actions are, my gameplay is. And ultimately, even though Saul did save me, like, there are no forever debts in Survivor, right? It's a week by week game. And she knows she's secure this week, but now she has to secure her future for down the line. And so I think right away she kind of had that cost benefit analysis, right? Like, what's the benefit of saving Saul versus what the cost would be of turning on him, living to fight another week, and we've only been tight for a week anyway, so how much am I really losing?
Well, and how funny is that too, where it's like, okay, you can do some favor, you can save a player's life in this game, but how far does that really get you, right? Because at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to what benefits me in this moment. How does this help my game? How does this further me and my path to the end? And if at any point, even though you do a favor, if it doesn't align with this gets me closer to the end, then it doesn't matter. The favor does no benefit for you.
And that's one of the reasons why I like Survivor so much, right? Is it definitely starts off as a team game, but it's always an individual's game.
Yeah.
So everybody talks about loyalty, but really the only person you could ever truly be loyal to is yourself. And you have to look at other people as, stepping stones to get to where you want to be, which is in the top 3. And so I think Rachel did the right move.
Yep. So Sam and Rachel start talking, and she's like, yeah, I've heard a name, can't say who. Sam, because he's smart, says, is it Saul? Just guesses right out the bat. And she kind of gives that like, kind of like, I don't want to say, but yeah. So she confirms that it is Saul. She's like, don't blow up my spot. what does Sam do? The very first thing he does, he runs up to Saul and is like, "It's your name. Your name is on the chopping block. We should probably go for Sue." And yeah, he tells Saul. The funny part about this is when, Saul tells Teeny then goes to Genevieve. None of them knew that it was Genevieve's plan all along. So they go to who they think is their allies, like, Genevieve, they're trying to get Saul out. And she's like, oh no.
Well, because Genevieve's Lavo too. So like,
Yeah.
There's that perceived loyalty that we just talked about that really doesn't exist. It's all a facade. And Genevieve all working together, you're thinking, well, those are three Lavo who are going to stick together through thick and thin. But Genevieve's smart. She's not playing for the now. She's playing for the future. And so Genevieve instantly hears that. And it's like, I got a little bit of work to do. Who can I talk to? And how can we make this right without me being, the person, like the flag bearer for this?
Yeah. So basically, they show up to Tribal, and at this point, everyone's name's been thrown out. No one knew who the vote was. They're like, well, shit. Like, they're literally leaving right now with their little torches. I don't know who we're voting for. And you see it in Tribal. It's a live Tribal the entire time. Basically, Jeff throws out a question, and they answer it, but meanwhile, some person was answering Jeff, and everyone behind them is like whispering to each other. They're still trying to figure it out, and what a feeling that would be if you're like, talking to Jeff Probst, answering his questions directly, but there's conversations going on behind you that you want to be a part of.
I couldn't do it. Like, I don't know if I'm like too voyeuristic. Like, I want to watch and see everything that's going on. Like, I would feel like if I invest my time talking to Jeff, I'm also losing out of an opportunity to sway something to keep my game alive. So I'd pull a Gabe. Jeff, politely, don't talk to me.
Yeah, could you shut the fuck up? Because he's like, it's your Tribal. So there's a couple funny quotes here. Andy said one where he's like, I just want to get my whispers in and no one else gets to whisper.
I didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
What a dweeb.
I just want to get my whispers in and no one else gets to. That was dumb. And then meanwhile, like, Teeny turns to Gabe and mouths like, is it Saul? Is it Saul? And he's like, no, it's good. We're good. And then like Sue turns to Kyle, like, are we good? Is it my name? And, Kyle is kind of like talking to people like, yeah, maybe Sue. So it's basically between Sue and Saul. Saul gets up, talks to Sam directly. Gabe's whispering to Kyle, like, no, it's going to be Saul. And only 2 people ended up voting for Sue. Everyone else voted Saul. He's gone. And Genevieve said, holy shit, it worked.
She's good, man. She's really good. She's got her hands in every vote. Like, she's dangerous. Her resume is going to be tough to top, especially because people aren't aware. And she's going to be the anti-Charlie, right? She's going to be able to articulate exactly what she did and how she did it at the end of the game. And she's going to blindside people because right now, I don't think there's awareness of what's happening, and people would probably be content with sitting on that final Tribal with her, and she will eat them alive.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny too, because we see all the confessionals, right? We see all the plotting and the strategy behind it. What I didn't realize, and I wrote down, when Sue was throwing out Gabe's name of like, yeah, I think he's working with like Sue and Caroline, like Sam was pointing out Gabe's secret alliance, but up till that point, it was kind of secret. Like, it was kind of flying under the radar. A lot of people didn't know they were all working together because you got to remember that they just kind of merged 2 Tribals ago, and they're still getting to know each other. So yeah, like Genevieve, all of her strategies, all of her like, you want to do something crazy? These are one-off conversations that we get to see. But to your point, not everyone is involved in those conversations, and a lot of people could get real swept up by this snake.
Yeah, I mean, she's good. I I just think of where like my hierarchy would be. Like if I were Vegas and I were putting odds on this, like she would have to be top 3 for me right now if I were setting betting lines.
Yeah.
I don't know who's playing better than her, honestly. Um, you could say Kyle just because he's won so many challenges, but as far as running the social game, I think Genevieve's the top dog.
Yeah. Well, and some of our favorites, right? Rachel, Sam, they haven't been on the right side of the votes. The votes have not been going the way that they want them to. So as much as I'm like, I like these people because they have played a great social game, have they really played all that good of a game?
I think that's debatable. You know who has been on the right side of the vote? It's my girl
Andy.
Caroline. Okay, Andy doesn't count. He's not a
My boy Andy.
Oh man, what if Andy finds us at some point and then like doxes us and does some weird AI stuff? What if he becomes one of our friends or neighbors and just assimilates into our environment and he's just stalking us the whole time? These are real thoughts and concerns.
At least a couple of these people are rappers of some sort, so they could stumble across the White Collar Rhymes podcast.
That is true. Both Rome and Sam, huh?
At least Sam, you're my boy. Rome, eat shit and die. You're so annoying. At the same time, like I do think Rome put on a character for TV. I think he was very intentional with how annoying he was being, so he would make the most of his 5 minutes of fame. I think Andy is just clueless and a total fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I don't think he's acting at all.
No. And I think he believes that he has like transformed over the course of the 15 days they've been out there. Like, because his freak out was on the island. And now he's like, this is me. I'm doing it for every kid back home. It's like, you're not doing it for every kid back home. You're saying because you think it sounds cool.
Yeah, and there are really inspiring people that get out there, they get off the couch, as Jeff always says, get off the couch and just go test your limits. There are plenty of people that do that. But at the same time, like, game recognized game, man. You got to give props where props are due, but you also can't take props when you're owed none.
That's a bar. That's a bar.
Yeah, that's how I feel. So yeah, if somebody, I think about this, right? Somebody stumbles across us judging them as people, as contestants, as whatever. Sometimes we might point out that your face is melting off of itself. Maybe that has nothing to do with the game, but you signed up for your face to be on TV. Your face is melting off of itself, and it makes my eyes upset.
Well, and that's the thing. So like we release music, we do review shows, we are public and we're out there. If at any time anybody says anything inflammatory about me, it's like I'm not gonna do the woe is me, because that's just the reality of what happens when you put yourself out in the ether to be judged, right? So like I'm not excusing myself for having poor behavior and insulting people, but I'm also anticipating that somebody's going to be like, oh, that dude has a crooked nose. He doesn't make any sense. He says words that don't necessarily fit the topic. Like, that's okay. I think my first humbling was when I found internet rap forums, and I was immediately laughed off of those forums and just told how terrible I was. I was told to die. Like, probably not the coolest thing, but also like that's reality. If anytime you allow yourself to be a public figure or seen to the public, like that's a risk you're willing to take.
Yeah. And I can't even like connect my mustache. So here I am, just putting myself out there.
It makes you look mysterious. Like I bet you would run a great like dinner murder theater thing. You're the butler, aren't you? You're always the butler. You've got to be.
Put that butt in Butler. Bars.
No,
I don't know. All right. Well, that was episode 9, season 47. R.I.P. my boy Saul. I liked him. I think that he was kind of clueless, and then he learned that he was clueless. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know any of this. I'm really far out of the game." And it felt like he was kind of starting to make connections that could get him farther, but ultimately Genevieve the snake dug her little fangs into his neck, poisoned the well.
It's just like you said though, right? Like this was the first episode where Saul seemed confident. And it's like it's such a double-edged sword because right when you feel like you're in control of the game, it can flip you on its head. And when he came back from the rewards challenge, like I think that was what was so off-putting is he's like, "Hey, we're doing this and everybody's cool with it, right?" So like when you're that emboldened to just say something rather than kind of like gauge the waters first, that could almost be your death kiss.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because like, obviously people are going to come to you and try to tell you something, but you see the players who are also like, "Huh, a lot of people are avoiding me today, and we have a tribal coming up. That's not a good sign." It makes you wonder, at what point do you start scrambling and looking for an idol again, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'd always be looking for an idol. I'd find a new poop hole every single opportunity, and that would just be my idol search.
Yeah, I got the fire poops. No one bugged me for the next hour and a half.
Exactly. All it takes is one Taco Bell reward, and you have carte blanche to go wherever you want.
Right. Shout out Taco Bell. All right. Any last thoughts, DJB, of episode 9? Our boy Saul, Genevieve, getting that sweet retribution for Rome.
I mean, that's so weird. Like, I don't know. I don't see anybody going to bat for Rome. I feel like that was just something convenient. I don't think she really cared other than she thought she could pull him along to get an extra vote for a while longer, but I don't think there was a real connection there. No, I liked Saul. Saul seemed like a decent dude, burps aside. I am always interested whenever we wrap one of these up to learn your thoughts going forward for next week. Your number one pick, your top dog, your Caitlin Clark of the draft. Rachel, what do you think she's in a good position now? She was on the right side of the votes, but she was on the right side of the votes after some swaying. So how do you think she's going to do?
Well, also, I guess remember in this episode, she let it loose, like, to Sam who the name was, and that was specifically they didn't want her to do that. So she might have lost a little social capital with Genevieve. At the same time, I don't think that she's necessarily a target right now. It feels like there's other bigger threats in the game. Genevieve, Saul, or Genevieve, Gabe. I think these are two people that'll get their heads cut before Rachel. So I do think she's in a pretty good position. But kind of like we were talking about is like at some point you have to be on the right side of a vote. You have to like drive more. And as much as I like her strategy, as much as I like her story, right? All the different things that have happened that she's had to adapt to. I'm just wondering what kind of a story can you pitch if you're left up there at 3 at this point,
Yeah, I think she's got a little bit of an arduous path to first get to the top 3, and then if she is in the top 3, make a convincing case that she's done something beyond, get saved, get lucky, and then just not be a target, but not necessarily make a move or not do anything that takes the target off her back or places it on someone else. She just happened to not be in the crosshairs.
But she does
I,
still have an idol that she was able to withhold because of that brilliant, like, let's do a shot in the dark. Anybody? No?
yeah,
And so now she has that in her pocket, which she can maybe use to an advantage to build the legend of Rachel.
yeah. She has to have a big move. Like that is a good resume thing where she's like, "Oh yeah, and I took a shot in the dark when I knew I didn't have to because I had an idol, but I didn't want anybody to understand I had like she has to be able to word that correctly when it
Yeah.
comes time to it. I think I'm really confident with where Caroline is right now.
Yeah.
When you have Sue and Gabe and Kyle all sitting there for Tuku, I believe it's the only tribe with 4 members left still.
Mm. So if they just hold strong, they
Well,
got some big numbers. Just pull one or two in.
right, really, they need to find somebody who may be on the outs. So like maybe Sam, who's probably a free agent right now since Andy's kind of grouped together with the Lavo crew. Like you pull him in, you've got a strong 6. That's going to be a majority vote moving forward.
Yeah.
Or wait, that'd be 5. Well, okay. I think you're still pretty good with 5 strong, and they haven't cracked. Caroline has not received a single vote yet, to my knowledge, and you've got 2 bigger targets who are also on your tribe ahead of you, and Kyle, who keeps winning comps, and Gabe, whose name has already been thrown out there. So
Yeah.
I think she's in a great spot, but she needs something to build her resume.
Speaking of building resumes, this is something that I kind of discussed when I was watching this and just thinking about it out loud. Can being a challenge beast win you Survivor in this era of Survivor? You know what I mean? Everyone's like, tell me your strategy, tell me your reasoning. Well, if you just win 10 challenges, like that's legendary and impressive, but is it worth $1 million? What do you think?
No. I think it depends on the timeliness of your wins. So I think if it comes down to it and you know your head's on the chopping block and you have like some Joe Montana-esque comeback or something like that, and you're like the clutch player of Survivor history, it holds more weight than if you just win the first 3 individual immunities like Kyle's won.
Mm-hmm.
I think he needs to do something along the way. And that could be as simple as like I stayed strong with Lava or with Tuku, even though there was influence from Gata and Lava to jump over with them. And this is why it worked. Like there's got to be some ability to spin, and I don't know how much of a wordsmith Kyle's going to be when it comes down to it. So he probably is going to have to win a couple more immunities.
Well, and that's kind of the crux of it too, right? Because if you're like always winning immunity, then you don't really have to, struggle. You don't have to pull yourself up from the bootstraps and start making other plans, tossing other names out. You're kind of just like, who we voting out this time, y'all? And like, I rode with my crew. I trust this crew. They gave me a name. I write it down,
But shouldn't that embolden you to make some big moves when you know you're safe and you know you have the capability to be safe more times than not, just based on your physical, prowess or mental acuity, like doing puzzles and challenges? Because I don't think he's been thrown off by puzzles. Like he seems like a pretty good all around challenge person.
all around challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, so like, wouldn't that make you want to make some big moves? Like, I think of like Sue, right? She's not going to win many challenges. Like, she's probably going to have to play a little bit more cautiously than someone like Kyle, who has the ability to say something outlandish, make a bold suggestion, and then back it up to save himself later.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's always the balance beam, right? Of I want to do something that's going to get me attention, but I don't want too much attention where if I do lose once, then I'm out, and already like people are looking at how many times he's won and being like, we gotta do something. I'd like to win a challenge once. Like, let's get this fucking guy out, But yeah, I just thought it was an interest. I don't think that the odds are you're just gonna win everyone, but at the same time, I was kind of like, what if it did happen? I feel like people respect strategy more than just winning immunities. So, yeah.
I think people view the social game is like being multi-layered, right? You have
Mhm.
to be able to mesh with a bunch of different people from different backgrounds with different experiences and help them get on your page, where a challenge is very much singular. Like either you're
Yeah.
born with athleticism or you're not. There's not that complex, detailed thinking that comes with manipulating situations and people. So to others, I think it's easy to just poo-poo the jocks is like, oh, well, of course they did it. They're athletic, rather than say like, you know, maybe they're athletic, but they had to apply, a different type of athleticism or a different strategy within the competition. And it's really unfortunate, I think, for some of those athletic people, men or women, to just be dismissed because they won an athletic competition without understanding that, like, oftentimes there's thinking and there's strategy in those athletic competitions,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be devalued as much as it is.
I agree. And there's all sorts of different things that factor into the challenges. Like you said, you got puzzles, which require brain power. You got, balance and like kind of mental stamina where you're like, oh, I have to do it a certain way. And then you have just the raw strength of like, oh, I have to pull this super heavy thing like across the football field's length of beach. Crazy. So yeah,
I,
it doesn't seem like there's a lot of weight given to the challenges outside of like, well, if we do want to get him out, we want to be able to get him out. So you can't just keep winning.
and I think back to like when I was a kid and I played video games and stuff. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're so lazy. You play video games," but like now it's more accepted. Like there is the e-gaming scene. There's a lot that goes into that, and the processing speed that those professional gamers have is at a different level.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering if Survivor's gonna have the same sort of evolution where people don't just say, "Oh, well, of course they advanced or they won the competition. It's easy. It was just a physical thing." And people take a little bit more time to pause and reflect that, like, yeah, maybe it was a mental fortitude one. Maybe it was persevering through pain. Maybe it was a physical challenge, but maybe it was also a puzzle. And they won immunity 3 different times. And a lot of those challenges and rewards that they experienced were multifaceted, and all three of those components played a factor in them.
Hmm. Well, I guess we'll tune in next week to see who's going to win the next challenges and if anyone will give a shit about it. uh, this has been White Collar Reacts, season 47, episode 9. Thanks for watching. Till next
Bye.
time. Bye.